I'm Tom Johnson, Thomas Johnson Antique Furniture Restoration in Gorham, Maine. This is a really nice Chippendale style dining chair, armchair. It's not an antique. It's probably 60, 80 years old, something like that. But it's a very nice chair, a nice set of chairs, all solid mahogany, very nice carving. And the problem here is that this back spot has broken. So I've got some options here. I could conceivably make an entirely new back spot, but honestly I've never carved anything quite like this before. It would be a challenge. I could glue this back together while it's out of the chair here, and that would make it a little bit easier to cut in wood across these breaks. But in either one of those methods I'd still have to get it back into the chair, and that would require major disassembly. So I've decided that what I'm going to do is glue this back together in the chair. I'm going to use hide glue for the joints. I'm going to use West System epoxy for this broken part after I clean off all this old glue. Then afterwards I'll try to cut in from behind and get some new wood across these breaks. So I'll scrape this glue on the break a little bit, but I'm going to use lacquer thinner and a brush to get it off. I don't want to use water, I don't want it to get wet, I don't want it to soak up and swell, and I want to glue it up today. This is some tough glue. I'm going to use some vinegar on it, see if that loosens it. I'm not worried about these joints being wet. They'll dry out in time, but I'm using a water-soluble glue on these anyway. I'm letting it sit for a minute or so. And of course this little exercise shows why it's good to use water-based glues for the glue joints of a piece of furniture, like hide glue or PVA glues. Any piece of furniture may need to be taken apart at some point for repair work. This is a little piece that was stuck to the tenon. Now would be a good time to glue it back. These clamps have just been on for a couple hours. Technically that's not long enough, but it's good for these slivers. I want to put this together dry and see how it goes. Right off the bat you can see that these tenons are really loose. I have a thin piece of wood here that's like 0.2 milliliters. Yeah, I think I can make that work. This is interesting. I'm putting this together dry, without glue in other words, and I can't get this to come together. It's like it's too long, yet I'm hard up against the shoulders here. So reluctantly, I'm just going to take just a skosh off this shoulder. I am so close. Actually, I think I got it. I'm also sighting this with the other splats. I don't want, it's got to be in line with those, but it looks good. Okay, like I said before, I'm going to use hide glue for the joints and epoxy for the repair. There we go. It can be really hard to get a raggedy brake like this lined up really well, but it's really important, you know, that all those jagged bits come together exactly. Okay, we'll let this set up overnight. Okay, let's see what we got. That went back together really well. Everything's exactly where it should be. Now this seems really strong. The epoxy's great, but I still want to put a spline across that brake. Now this piece measures about a half an inch, 12.7 milliliters. As a general rule, I don't want to go over 50%, but I'm going to go a little bit less here. I'm going to put in a 3/16 spline, and that's about 4.7 milliliters. I'm going to use a router to cut the spline with a template to guide it. This is going to be loud. Turn down your volume. Okay, we'll let this dry overnight. All right, let's see what we've got here. Now I've got quite a few spaces and some cracks and voids I'm going to fill with epoxy putty. I always set a timer for about 7 minutes and try to chisel away some of this epoxy putty before it fully hardens. And it can help to dip your chisel in some water too. Before the epoxy putty completely hardens, it's good to also carve in any of these details as much as you can. This stuff is hard to sand once it's hardened. Alright, this is set up for about 45 minutes. I think I can start sanding now. Okay, so now I'm going to sand everything again with 150 and then 220. Okay, so now I'm ready for some stain. I'm going to use this medium brown walnut dye stain. I'm going to mix it like 50-50 with alcohol and try that. Try a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to put the stain over the whole area and then immediately wipe it off. Put a little alcohol in my rag. So that flashes off really quickly, and now without even putting any more stain on my brush, I can go back and add stain to the lighter areas that I think need more color. Okay, this will dry in about 45 minutes, and then I'll seal it with some shellac. Okay, I can seal it now with some aerosol shellac. Okay, this is actually dried for a few days because I went away, but I'm going to go over the area with a Scotch-Brite gray pad to smooth it out, and then hit it with a coat of gloss and see what the color looks like. Alright, I've let this dry for an hour or so. The color on the front looks good. I don't think there's anything I can do to improve that. The back doesn't look bad. You can see my spline clearly here, but it does seem to be the right color. I think I'm just going to spray this. I need a little color right there, and I think I'm going to spray it with a little toner. And I'll use some Perfect Brown toner. Alright, I'm going to let that toner coat dry for an hour, and throughout the afternoon I'll hit this with 2 or 3 more coats of gloss. Okay, well, off camera I put on a couple more coats of this acrylic lacquer gloss, and I'm going to go over it now again with the gray pad, really smooth it out for a final coat, and I'll do a little bit larger area. I won't spray the entire backsplat, but I'll spray a bigger area than that repair area. I'm going to go over the area to be sprayed with this Mohawk wax wash remover. Alright, this is dried for a couple hours now. I'm going to go over the whole chair with the steel wool and the beeswax and orange oil polish. So there you have it. Really nice mahogany, Chippendale style dining room armchair. And this back splat was completely shattered and broken in half. It had been broken before, so I glued it back together and added a spline in the back. And I think it looks pretty good. What do you think? Here's the spline I put in. I've got about 7 hours in this job. I used a table saw, the band saw, and these hand tools and materials.